All right, good morning, everybody. Today is Tuesday, June 7th, 2016, and this is Before the First Cup of Jules here on UCY.TV. Happy Tuesday, everyone. It is 68 degrees, overcast and a little drizzly here in upstate New York. It's been raining for a good part of the night, but my plants love it. Where do we leave off yesterday? We titled the show Gene Therapy Approved in Children, Designer Humans, and Synthetic Genome. We looked at a story where they now have approved genetic therapy for the bubble boy disease in the UK, where they can go in real time, slice and dice your genome to make some real time changes. And they're saying that they are having some great success. Previous to that, they were treating the bubble boy disease with stem cell treatment that they were making out of the bone marrow, and that was having a 100% success rate. But this is slicing and dicing live genes in a live human. Most children with that disease don't make it beyond a year without treatment. So it is pretty devastating. And they said that in the EU, there were only 15 cases a year. So it's not like it's a big killer, but it is the first foray into editing genes in live human beings. And so it should be paid attention to, because don't think that that's going to be the last. This is the brave new world. And editing genes in children is something that they've been salivating over for a very long time. Of course, the desperate and the sick to use as your guinea pigs. Last night, I was paying a lot of attention to Alan Watt and his show that aired. It was this week's show. I was very surprised that Watt and I seem to have come to a lot of the same conclusions, that none of this is for us. We are the guinea pigs in the petri dish with all this new technocratic takeover that's happening. And we are just willingly going along with it, but we shouldn't be, because we are being assimilated. Designer humans. Yes, this lunatic guy, what was his last name? His first name was Church. We talked about the genome meeting at Harvard a couple weeks back about them creating the synthetic human genome. 150 scientists met. They discussed the quote-unquote ethics of it, which now hearing more about this, I don't think they discussed anything about the ethics of it. They just discussed about how much money they were going to make and all the ways that they can enslave humanity if they create the 3 billion proteins or whatever it was to make a human synthetic genome. The guy in charge of it was this, his last name was Church. Remember his first name. Let's see, George Church, yes, of Harvard, who wrote a book in 2012 called Regenesis, How Synthetic Biology Will Reinvent Nature and Ourselves. Now, this is the guy that we're putting in charge of creating the synthetic human genome. And oh, by the way, 3 weeks ago they had the meeting about it, and a few days ago they decided that they're going to tackle it. And strangely enough, they ended up with a chunk of change, $225,000 or so, from Autodesk, the AutoCAD software maker, which makes absolutely no sense at all, but they're helping to finance the first round. So let's finish looking at the story we were reading yesterday on Church. Plan to fabricate a genome raises questions on designer humans, which I think it should. It's from June 2nd. What will scientists do with $100 million to mass produce genes in the lab? I can't even believe that they're talking about this, number one, and they're thinking that they're going to have this done within 10 years. So 2016, 2026. I would say that that's not impossible. considering how technology increases exponentially. Can't even imagine 10 years from now what the world is going to look like. Anyway, so they talked to this church and they interviewed him, and they found out in this article, and this is out of MIT Technology Review, that, the church guy that's spearheading creating the first human genome, even though the project's parameters only call for creating the human synthetic genome in a petri dish, and that's as far as it ever goes, ever. And that's what they said in the meeting. Wink. I mean, come on. Nobody's that naive to believe that they're going to create the first synthetic human genome and then leave it in a petri dish forever. They were saying that, we can use this to cure all kinds of diseases, and it'll be so wonderful. And we can have the human body defend itself against all viruses. Well, interesting that at this very same time, he's mentioning the human body defending itself against all viruses in this article. We have 3 or 4 articles that have come out from different publications, one being the New York Times, talking about the synthetic immune system, the shape-shifting synthetic immune system that 3 or 4 different companies are working on developing for humans, made out of synthetic biology. This is a plan, people. I think this is an orchestrated plan. This right now is very conveniently placed news that made it into the mainstream. Where is humanity's uproar? This is the pivotal moment in history when biology 1.0, even though the water is kind of muddied right now, because who knows what they've been doing with the GMOs and stuff, and the chemtrails and whatever. I mean, we've probably been getting sliced and diced and slightly transhumanized through other routes for a while now, but this is the battle cry. This is the battle cry to the transhumanists, to the rich billionaires who want longevity and want to live forever. This is the battle cry for assimilation that is coming, and it's going to be done through your probably unknowing takeover of your DNA. I was really hoping we can get Clint on this week. I saw him come online like seconds before the show started, but as you could hear, I'm still half asleep, so not a good day to be sending someone emails going, hey. But we'll see in the next couple days, because I really want to get his take on some of this insanity. It's just been on fast forward for the last, 3 years already. Oh, all right, so let's read this story. So this church, George Church out of Harvard, who is in charge of creating this synthetic human genome, and it's, by the way, $250,000 to start this project from Autodesk, a software company that makes AutoCAD. And we find out that Church is a big transhumanist. And Church is like, well, of course, somewhere along the way, this is going to mean making synthetic humans, but as part of the written project, it doesn't. As part of the official quote-unquote project, it is only about creating the genome in the petri dish to see what would happen. All right. Here we're going to look at this. The announcement this past week, last Thursday, actually, in the Journal of Science about making the human synthetic genome is the latest sign that biotechnology is going through a rapidly advancing but ethically fraught period. You think so? They seem to not have any issue at all with creating fully synthetic humans. I don't know how this is even possible. I don't know how some little group of lunatics at some Ivy League university have carte blanche to start making decisions about synthesizing the building blocks of life. And albeit 3 billion of them, I mean, I guess give a feather in the hat to the lunatic who finally did it. But on the other hand, it's like giving a feather in the hat to the lunatic who created the first bioweapon to wipe out planet Earth. Or, like, why would we be rewarding this? And why would this not be, if nothing else? Because, I mean, nobody wants regulation. But what about, like, big stern scowls from the rest of the scientific community? I just don't understand why this is being touted as something good. MIT isn't really kind of touting it as good, but they're not really touting it as bad either. They're just kind of like touting it as matter of factly. There's no reason this has to be matter of factly. Pull his funding, Autodesk. Like, why are you funding synthetic humans? And of course, Autodesk puts out a statement and says, sorry to disappoint, but no synthetic humans will be produced here. But we find out that this church is a full-blown transhumanist. And in his book that he wrote in 2012, even though in his official paper for the quote-unquote project, it's only going to be done in a petri dish, in his book from 2012, he talks about creating artificial humans. It's there. The plan is there, people. Anyway, I don't know. I don't want to read all the stuff that's just so irrelevant. It's dark and cloudy here. It's great sleeping weather, by the way. It was hard for me. My alarm clock is on my phone. I actually know not to trust that sucker because this morning there was no alarm. My phone was fully locked up and black screened. So, boop, I wake up at 9:45. All right. I don't know. There's so many tabs open here. Let's see if I could find where I was. All right. Yeah, this one's out of the Washington Post. So 3 weeks ago, of course, 130, so not 150, 130 scientists, entrepreneurs, and policy leaders held an invitation-only closed-door meeting at Harvard to discuss an ambitious plan to create synthetic human genomes. Now, after a flurry of criticism over the secrecy of the effort, yeah, so the original meeting was like super secret as well. The participants have published their idea, declaring that they are launching a project to radically reduce the cost of synthesizing genomes. So, of course, yes, this is going to be able to get the synthesizing of genomes down to the sub $1,000 level for the entire human body. And I even saw they rolled out Michio Kaku to go sell that one. He was all excited. He's like, oh, you'll be able to put your entire genome on a CD-ROM for less than $1,000, and it's going to be amazing. Because right now it costs like $50,000. Well, I don't want my genome on a CD-ROM, and I really don't care how much it costs. I'm fine the way I am. Please leave me alone. Potentially revolutionary development in biotechnology that could enable technicians to grow human organs for transplantation as well. And that's a new thing that they're spinning. We've talked about that. We talked about, there was an MIT Technology Review story as well where they were growing transgenic. It's all about trans these days. Transgenic organs in pigs for transplantation. Remember that? We probably did that last year at UC Davis, I believe it was. They had shot the pigs up with human DNA and had gotten them to grow human organs that they could then, they're hoping, easily cut out and transplant. I just saw yesterday they made an announcement that they were doing this at UC Davis or UC Berkeley, wherever it was. And the story went viral. But wait, we did that story like last year, literally. So I don't know how an announcement just came out in June of 2016 about this whole project and everyone's all shocked. Maybe because they actually used like simple words in the title, like human animal hybrids or something. And when we did the story originally, they used the word chimera. And I don't think a lot of people know what chimera means. So they just skip news with hard words they don't understand. That's how it goes. All right. So anyway, this new technology for creating the synthetic human genome, of course, will be to create artificial organs to help you because there's such an organ shortage. Now, on the other hand, we've done all this reading about stem cell research where they could create stem cells for any organ out of just the skin on your hands. I don't think I want them growing me synthetic genome compatible organs in a petri dish. Personally, I would much rather have them scrape some skin cells off my hand and create me some, I don't know, liver stem cells or some spine stem cells. I mean, we've done probably 30 or 40 stories now on successes they've been having in the lab using stem cell therapy from the person to go in and physically, miraculously correct issues with organs. It's incredible, as a matter of fact. Stem cell research, out of all this mad science, stem cell research is the one thing that doesn't frighten me. Because I get it. I totally get it. And I don't think that it's wrong. You're just replacing bad cells with good cells of your own. There's no phony, synthetically owned, shape-shifting, evil scientist crap in there at all. It's your own stem cells. Just made all new and happy and shiny, and they want to go fix things. That is totally awesome to me. You should be able to give a sample in your home replicator that, of course, we'll all have here in the next 10 or 15 years. All smart home connected replicators. Let it take some skin scrapings, and it could create you your little bio kit in the wall. Stem cells for all your major organs. So anytime you need a dose, you got a 24/7 doctor in your wall. I don't know. It sounds silly, but I don't think so. They're getting pretty far. Stem cells they've been messing with since the 80s. Maybe not in this country, but they've done a lot of research for a lot of years on stem cells, and they are having tons of success. And if you don't believe me, look it up. I mean, even mini brain balls, creating little brains out of skin cells that were coaxed into brain cells. And these little brains grew and think. They just have no input devices. They don't have any eyes or ears. They're going to now play with those and start injecting them into brain dead patients, which is pretty ethically horrifying as well. But hey, they're in another country. I think those experiments were happening in India, where all the edible vaccines are happening right now. Remember, that's like Billy Gates' third world playground. And the brand new experimental shape-shifting HIV vaccine is gonna launch in South Africa. Who would have thunk it? It's some third world nation. It's just unbelievable. Mad science going mad. All right, so anyway, so they think that this is a synthetic human genome project. What they're going to sell it as is, it'll be able to create new organs for you. Because we have such a shortage. And, some people might push back on these chimera human-animal hybrid growings of organs. So this is how we're going to sell it. It can enable technicians to grow human organs for transplantation. Well, this past Thursday, the announcement that they want to create the synthetic human genome now after the secret meeting 3 weeks ago is the latest sign that biotechnology is going through a rapidly advancing but ethically fraught period. Scientists have been honing their techniques for manipulating the complex molecules that serve as the code of life on the planet. Ding. And the same issue of the journal Science reports a breakthrough in editing RNA molecule that is a close cousin of DNA. And yeah, we're going to springboard this into CRISPR today. I have a couple CRISPR stories, and my tabs are really messed up, so hopefully I can find them, but I think I know where they are. Let's read a little bit more of this, though, and then we'll start talking about CRISPR and some of the new tech. The promoters of synthetic genomes envision a project that would eventually be on the same scale as the Human Genome Project in the 1990s, which led to the sequencing of the first human genomes. The difference would be that instead of reading genetic codes, which is what sequencing does, these scientists would be writing them. And, a while back, we had looked at 3D printing, 3D laser printing, no less. Genetic code. There was that one Cambrian Genomics out of California where that youngster was running the company. I think that was his, yeah. And he wanted to democratize the creation of life, and then he mysteriously ended up dead. Never actually found out how he died, but he was pretty cocky. And he was trying to buck the establishment, and then he just showed up deceased. But he had a technique where they could literally 3D laser print DNA sequences. So if there was some rinky-dink startup, imagine what they have in some of these multi-billion-dollar labs somewhere. 3D laser print with precision. So anyway, this is instead of reading them, which is what the Human Genome Project was in the 90s, now we're writing them. And they've dubbed this project, quote, Genome Project Write, which is shortened HGP. That is the name of this project. The goal of HGP Write is to reduce the cost of the engineering and testing of large genomes in which a human genome in the cell lines of more than 1,000-fold within 10 years while developing new technologies and an ethical framework for genome scale engineering, as well as transformative medical applications. Now, that's the problem. Obama, with his precision healthcare initiative back from last year, we had listened to a couple clips. Precision medicine is going to be the engine for the 21st century, Johnny. Give us a little swab of your cheeky. We need to get your DNA sequence. Get it into all of our databases, slice and dice it. Take a look at all the places you are defective, Johnny. Oh, what? You have a little problem with XYZ? Well, guess what? We just approved editing genomes in children, Johnny. And you get to be the lucky guinea pig that we're going to fix you. This is just frightening to me. I heard Elon Watt yesterday talking about the fact that they're allowed to do this as they devalue life more and more and make it worthless. I was very surprised. I listen to Watt every week, but I don't listen to Watt. You know what I mean? Like, I hear his words, but I don't digest them necessarily all the time. Not until the second or third time I've heard it. But yesterday I was just sitting there. We had hit a thunderstorm, and I was just kind of chilling out, listening to the show, and it was all quiet. And man, he and I are tapped into the same channel somewhere, or I don't know, maybe we listen to each other's shows. But the value of life is squat. They've devalued by being able to slice and dice and create and tell you how imperfect you are. Life in a petri dish. And wantingly do mad science experiments on living organisms without their knowledge. Because that's been going on for a very long time. There is no value left to life anymore. We are useless consumers. We're resistant consumers. We're not going along with the game plan. We're not sucking up the water and eating the poison food like they planned. Oh, we got a thinker. They got away. And now these damn thinkers are really becoming a pain in our ass. We're the ones that are raising the alarms. We are the ones that are blowing the horn. I have to say, I felt pretty. You ever want to talk about a proud mama? Yesterday was one of those proud mama moments. It was a half day of school for some dumb reason. I don't know. They should even be out of school by now, like the rest of the country is. But, New York State, they try and soak the feds for as much federal funding as possible. So they just keep them into the very last moment. Even though nothing is being done, they're watching movies and reading books. But yesterday was a half school day, so it was a rough one. I had to be out of here by noon and spend my day. We actually had a very nice lunch tea party with the cat. We worked on vegetable gardens. We played some Campbell's soup Scrabble. I had my butt kicked. It was a good afternoon. But what she decided to do, and this is without prompting from Mom, she totally understands genetically modified foods and reasons why she's not allowed to eat them. I've made that very clear. I haven't been scary about it. I've just explained it very matter-of-factly and explained it from a health perspective. And, the kids don't get scared. They understand. They absolutely understand why they don't want to be eating pesticides. Show them dead bugs. They know. They absolutely know why it is good to eat organic, natural food. Just like Mom used to eat when she grew up. Just like Nana used to eat when she grew up. The way food used to be. Not in a box. Not in a microwave. Not with garbage 10 miles long on the label. Just a tomato. I've also talked about, some of the crazy things like spider goats and tomato flounder. I think, wasn't there like a scorpion? There's a scorpion something too. Of course, those are pretty horrifying thoughts, but I told her they're doing lots of tinkering with the building blocks of life, and nobody knows the damage that it could be causing 1, 2, 3 generations down the line because they just aren't looking at that. How many times throughout your lifetime have they already said, oh, yeah, look at this newfangled food, da, 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 and they advertise crap out of it, use Bernaysian selling techniques to get you to buy it. And then you find out 20 years from now, you got horrific liver cancer. Where did that come from? Oh, must be in your family. Oh, must have been all that alcohol you drank. No, it was the pots and pans that you cooked on for 25 years. Thank you very much. The Teflon. Look at. But how are you ever going to prove that? There's a lawsuit right now against DuPont for that Teflon. But how many millions of other people, besides the ones that are in that lawsuit, eat off of Teflon all those years? End up with liver cancer and have no idea that Teflon could have caused any issues whatsoever. Plausible deniability. So anyway, I've taught my kid all this stuff. So yesterday, for half a school day, right toward the afternoon, I had to cut. I put it aside. I had to cut Brandon's show for last night and get the rebrew for this show in for the 5 o'clock hour. So I had to go on the computer for a few minutes. My daughter comes downstairs with a big piece of red poster board. I don't even know where this came from because we weren't talking GMOs. But she decided that next year she wants to be part of the anti-GMO protests, because I had mentioned before about the global protests for March Against Monsanto that our host, Mr. Nick Burnaby, founder of the Anti-Media, was very, very responsible for happening the very first times. We had Nick actually on UCY as a guest when he was planning the global march against Monsanto, and that was, Anti-Media was still a long twinkle in his eye before that ever happened. So it was pretty awesome. I mean, he was a young kid at that time, and not young, but young relatively to me. And I was so impressed with him because he managed to pull the whole world together for just one day, for one cause. I mean, that's what we got to do. And people get it. I mean, even my 70-plus-year-old parents get GMOs and can explain it to their friends and understand why it's bad. So anyway, my 10-year-old yesterday spent the whole afternoon with a black Sharpie, a big piece of red poster board, and she did the nicest anti-GMO, and I don't mean nicest as in not mean, but the nicest anti-GMO protest sign I have ever seen. And she did it all by herself. The only thing I helped her with was finding out what new foods are genetically modified, because she was drawing pictures too across the middle of every food and putting the names down below to list them. Did you know that zucchini and yellow squash are genetically modified? Because I didn't. We found that out yesterday. Now, I have heritage seeds that I'm growing, but I did not know that the stuff in the supermarket is genetically modified. And just so you know, I went to go visit an old friend of mine the other day, and, he's known me a long time, and they just all kind of roll their eyes, when they have me over at parties, because I'll usually end up with all the brothers. We're sitting around the campfire with a few beers, and I'd be telling stories, and they'd be like, "Oh, Jewel." Well, my friend's wife, when I was over visiting the other day, comes to me. Do you know she actually started questioning the trails in the sky, and then she went online, and then she found Dane Wigington. If you can even believe it, she had no idea that we knew Dane, or Dane started his radio show on UCY. It was pretty funny. She emailed Dane and asked him some questions. He actually emailed her back, and then she started digging more. And I have to tell you, I haven't talked to her in probably about a year, because she's always busy. I don't see her that much, but I was there for about 2.5 hours. We were just going on and on and on and on and on. She has done such a great job digging into the research, and not just about chemtrails. She was digging into vaccines and all these other things, GMOs and health issues and gut bacteria. And, I was so impressed at how much she knew. But you know what she told me? When she was at the grocery store the other day, there were vegetables that were listed as organic, and she looks at the code. They have those codes on the vegetables, and you should be able to tell whether or not it's organic or genetically modified. She said that there are vegetables in the grocery store that are listed as organic and have a number 8 in front of the UPC code, which means there's genetic modification. So there's somehow organic, genetically modified vegetables out there. I have not verified this at all. I do trust my friend's wife, though. I mean, she's a pretty smart cookie. And I think we should check into that, because I remember back a year or so ago, we had read a story about Monsanto starting their own organics line. Do you remember this back when I had Zori and Lady Pitbull on with me every day? Because I remember laughing at that like it was a cruel joke. Monsanto starting their own organic line of vegetables. But now it makes me wonder, what is that number 8 at the front of the UPC code? And actually, let's see, vegetable. Let's see if anything's going to search here. Vegetable UPC code organic. Let's take a look here. Because I know that there is, PLUs. That's what they're called. Yeah. I should have remembered that. PLU. Well, I don't want to look at the whole. This is the whole PLU. Here, PLU codes don't indicate GMO produce. Conventional or organic. Going beyond PLUs. Let's look at this, because it really frightens me if here we are, or I'm sending hubby out to go, get a few things. We think we're buying organic, and now all of a sudden, quick switcheroo. And that's why we're going to talk about this new CRISPR, too. Because eventually, and I'm wondering if maybe this 8 doesn't mean something about this new CRISPR technology that's allowing them to circumvent being called genetically modified. Because it's not genetically modified, it's just CRISPR'd. We just spliced and diced it and cut some stuff out, snip, snip. How interesting. I go on this page, Yum Universe. I don't know, but it's got the codes on it, and they have them cutting up yellow squash up top. Can't believe yellow squash and zucchini have genetically modified components. And you know they're working on mushrooms now. There's new CRISPR mushrooms and new DuPont CRISPR corn too. All right, so there are these PLU codes. When you turn over your fruits and vegetables, you're going to see them, and they have different numbers on them. And there are a couple different ranges. Now, let's see. The number 9, if an item is organic, you will see the number begin with the number 9. But if the food is genetically modified, you will see the 5-digit number begin with a number 8. And that's what my friend was saying, is that the fruit or vegetable or whatever it was, I think she said it was a tomato actually, said 8, but the label said organic. I don't know. An organic genetically modified tomato. So keep an eye on that. Somebody please let me know. Email me at contact.ucytv@gmail.com. It's on UCY's homepage. If anyone else runs across this, or go to the YouTube channel, youtube.com/UCYTV, and leave a note in the show notes, any of my shows. I'll get them. They come in as the little number up top. But let me know if anyone else has seen this, because there should be alarm bells. If there is organic, genetically, or quote-unquote organic, genetically modified food sitting on the shelves, and people are just thinking that organic means that they're keeping away from GMOs and they're not looking at those PLUs, there's a problem. So, yeah, let me finish. So anyway, my kid yesterday, she gets it. She made this great sign, and it says, "Say no to GMOs." And then she has them all drawn and listed out and spelled out, and they're beautiful little pictures. And then underneath, right in the middle, really big, it says, "Go Organic." It was awesome. I was very proud of her. I was like, well, chip off the old block there. Okay. That was a long segue. So, let's get into some of this genetic modification that is not genetic modification. And that is that CRISPR technology. You know, Jennifer Dauda, the inventor of CRISPR, and I think she was, I don't remember if she was out of, she was out of University of California, Davis. And then they had some cohorts they were messing around with at MIT as well. But the CRISPR technology has changed the way that they do any type of genetic messing around. It allow them to snip bits of DNA out and replace it, zip and unzip, zip, zip, and replace it with something else. And they now have taken CRISPR a step further. Hold on one second, because I want to find this circumventing, if I can spell, circumventing. Here. This was at the end of last year. CRISPR tweaks may help gene-edited crops bypass biosafety regulations. And right, there aren't really any biosafety regulations here in the United States. And especially after we were looking at them being able to modify foods to turn them into vaccines. We looked at that for a few days. The potato, the tomato, lettuce, rice, banana. What else can they do that with? Oh, tobacco. But what else can they do that with? I could guarantee you they probably could do it with mostly anything. Especially if they don't have to tell us that they're doing it. And this is what frightens me beyond belief. And then my friend telling me that she's finding organic, genetically modified foods at the grocery store. Well, what does that mean? Does that mean that they're splicing some sort of who knows what into our vegetables? But it was grown in soil with no pesticides? It's frightening. Our food supply is not safe, people. So a twist on a revolutionary gene editing technique may make it possible to modify plant genomes while sidestepping national biosafety regulations, say South Korean researchers. Plant scientists have been able to experiment with CRISPR-Cas9 technique, which uses an enzyme called CRISPR, blah, blah, blah. And I mean, we don't really need to get into how it works again. It's too late, too early. My brain hurts. But the process has introduced a few bits of foreign DNA into the plant genome, and in some jurisdictions, such as the European Union, could decide to classify such plants as genetically modified organisms because, yes, they have been modified. Oh, wheat also, by the way, is genetically modified as well as rice, but rice has not been yet commercialized. That is still in Japan. Kim and his team, this is at Seoul University in South Korea, tweaked the technique so the CRISPR can delete specific plant genes without introducing foreign DNA, creating a plant that he and his colleagues think might be exempt from current GMO regulations, which means that, of course, they'll be able to spread it across the planet. Conventional researchers working in a plant cell first shuttle the gene codes with the Cas9, and the gene is then introduced, and even if it is not used, some of this DNA from this bacteria that they use for CRISPR, in this case the agrobacterium, can end up in the plant's genome, even if it's not used at all, just to splice and dice. But to get around this problem, they avoid using gene shuttling altogether, and they use an enzyme instead. And now, Kim says he was messing around with rice, and get this, Kim and his colleagues now report a recipe to assemble a Cas9 enzyme together with its guide RNA sequences. And remember, there's this new technology now, and this might be a part of it, in which the enzyme requires to find its target outside of the plant. And then they use a solvent to get the resulting protein. And the technique works efficiently in what? Oh, tobacco plants, rice, lettuce, and here's a new one, whatever thale cress is. And I know cress is like a leaf. I think I actually have some of that growing. Wow, my sky looks yellow. I hope we don't have tornadoes coming. It's really dark and yellow out. The cress I have growing in the greenhouse with my lettuces. And, I mean, who knew that lettuce could be genetically modified easily? Or that we could put vaccines in lettuce, right? I mean, we spent 2 days looking at that. This Professor Kim also wants to use this technique to edit what? Oh, he wants to edit the bananas, too. Are we seeing a pattern here? All these same fruits and vegetables that are genetically modified are also the ones that they're using for edible vaccines. Except they're not talking about the edible vaccines in any of this research. But you know that they can put anything they want into this food. And how long is it going to be before it includes anything and everything? Well, let's see. I'm going to find my, here, CRISPR. Gene-edited CRISPR mushroom. escapes U.S. regulation. This is April 14th, 2016. A fungus engineered with the CRISPR-Cas9 technique can now be cultivated and sold without any further oversight. Now, my favorite, mushrooms. I saw when I was first getting my garden ready that there were some stores that had mushrooms. You could buy a log with mushrooms growing out of it. And it might be a good idea, especially if they're CRISPR-Cas9ing mushrooms. What are they doing to all this food? Stay out of my food, man. Tell you, I have had a food, what do you want to call it? Disorder since I was a little kid. I'm real picky about what I eat. And I'm pretty good about it now at 48. I've gotten around all the issues. When I was a little kid, I'm sure my mother was ready to brain me half the time because I was so stubborn. But I'm really picky about my food. And I've gotten good about it. I have things that I like to make, and I like to make them a certain way. And I don't put any creepy, gross stuff in there or sneak stuff in there. As a trick my mother used to play on us when we were kids. She would put something that we didn't like into it, and then she'd wait until we were eating it going, oh, this is delicious. And then she'd go, you know what I put in there? And I mean, that really causes scars when you grow up. If someone's always trying to sneak stuff into your food, and here we are again, except now it's the government trying to sneak stuff into my food. You don't know, guys, how badly this makes me upset. It, literally sends me into a state of psychological distress, okay? If you haven't noticed by my obsession of doing shows about this technology on a daily basis. Anyway, so this CRISPR mushroom. So the long-awaited decision means that this mushroom can now be cultivated and sold without passing through the agency, and this is the USDA, through the agency's regulatory processes, making it the very first CRISPR-edited organism to receive a green light from the U.S. government. Well, aren't we damn excited? So CRISPR mushrooms on the shelf, no testing needed. Let's look the other way and wave our magic wands, and now they're on the grocery shelves. The research community is very happy about the news, says Xiaxia Gao, a plant biologist at the Chinese Academy of Sciences Institute of Genetics and Developmental Biology in Beijing, who was not involved in this mushroom project. But Xiaxiao says, I am confident we will see more gene-edited crops falling outside of the regulatory authority. Yes, those pesky regulatory agencies that were set up to keep us safe, that never kept us safe. But at least somebody at some point was looking with half an eyeball at the ingredients and putting a stamp on it. Now it is just out a window. And think about this. So we're finding out how easy it is to genetically modify tomatoes, potatoes, lettuce, tobacco, zucchini now, right? Yellow squash, rice, bananas, and then do things to them like edible vaccines. And I mean, then we read about research from the 80s, and then we fast forward and we read about research that's happening right now in Japan and Australia, in all of our offshore mad science divisions, and probably some secret University of California, Harvard, or MIT labs, right? So now if they could take all this and they fought, so nothing has to be labeled as GMO, and now the CRISPR technique comes along, and we've issued precedents by saying a mushroom is a mushroom is a mushroom, just like we did for GMO. We're now going to do for CRISPR. Doesn't need any regulatory approval. Who knows what was swapped, sliced, and diced in this mushroom? Soon to be lots of other things. Goes on the shelf. And then my friend tells me that she's seeing organic produce with a number 8 on the PLU, which means genetically modified. And it really makes you wonder. I want to start paying attention to that because I almost think that this could be a part of that. Because CRISPR isn't genetic modification. No, just snipping. Just gene editing. But we didn't add anything to it. We just cut stuff out and made it do other stuff. All right. Anyway. Yin Yong Yang. A plant pathologist where? Oh, at Pennsylvania State University, Penn State. That's where they were working on the DARPA universal flu vaccine expressing genetically modified tobacco plant for Ebola. And universal flu vaccines now to be shape-shifting vaccines. Yes, that same Penn State has engineered a common white button mushroom that resists browning. Oh, yes. Isn't that how we're doing it now? That's why we now have a genetically modified apple to give to little Johnny because he was crying about his apples turning brown by lunchtime. And a genetically modified potato. Why? Oh, because it's got little brown spots on it. And you don't know how to use a knife to cut them out with the eyes. Yes, you lazy humans. See, this is all caused by our own utter laziness. People can't be bothered. Too busy to grow their own food. Too busy to prepare their own food. So it's all about convenience. Convenience is addictive. We looked at that. It causes dopamine. TV dinners. Yay. Remember in the 70s? Because we were too busy. All the mamas had to go to work to be able to afford the TV dinners. It's just, we did this to ourselves. Get dirt under your fingernails and start growing stuff. Figure out how bad off we would be if all of our infrastructure fell apart. How the hell are you going to eat? Because I'm telling you, when I look at how much time and effort it takes just for my little garden here, and the fact that I only get 3 months of decent weather to grow food a year here, and we literally just planted like 3 weeks ago, and it's already the end of the first week of June. In the northeastern states, man, you'd be pretty screwed if you were depending on the growing season to come up with your subsistence. It's cold and it's dark, and we don't get sun here. Maybe a grow light, but then you better be making your own electricity to boot. It's just very frightening to see how dependent we are on the system. And even being dependent when you're trying to take care of some of that and get back to the basics and start growing your own, you still can't depend fully upon yourself. And then even stuff that you thought was safe in the store is no longer potentially safe anymore. There's nothing that's quote-unquote safe, I don't think. So anyway, these mushrooms, they genetically modified them so they don't turn brown. Because, Johnny doesn't like brown. It's not perfect. Perfect. Everything is all about looking perfect because you watch too much TV. The mushroom is one of about 30. 30, count them, 30. That's like 6 sets of hands with the fingers all up. 30 genetically modified organisms that are about to sidestep USDA regulation over the past 5 years. And in each case, the agency's Animal and Plant Health Inspection Service, more affectionately known as APHIS, has said that organisms, mostly plants, do not qualify as something that the agency must regulate. Once a crop passes the USDA reviews, it may still undergo a voluntary, step up, and voluntarily put yourself in the scope, voluntarily reviewed by the Federal Drug Administration. Several of the plants that bypassed the USDA were made using the gene technique, such as a zinc finger nuclease known as ZFN, and a transcription activator-like effector nuclease, which is TALEN, TALEN for short. But until now, it was not clear whether the USDA would give the same pass to organisms engineered with the science's hottest new tool called CRISPR-Cas9. I don't know, man. I must have totally missed that zinc finger nuclease and TALEN systems, but they apparently were the precursors to CRISPR. Yang first presented his crop of genetically CRISPR mushrooms to the USDA in October of 2015 after being encouraged to do so by an APHIS official, and they were very, very excited. The USDA came this week. APHIS does not consider CRISPR-Cas9 white button mushrooms as described in your letter to be regulated. So, ding! The USDA and Yang's mushroom did not trigger oversight because it does not contain foreign DNA from quote-unquote plant pests, such as viruses or bacteria, and such organisms were necessary for genetically modified plants in the 80s and the 90s when the U.S. government developed its framework for regulating GMOs. Whose fake history bullshit are they writing this to? There really hasn't been much of any regulation at all. Yeah, the GMO regulations in the 80s and the 90s. What? Putting it into our food supply and not telling anyone? Yes, that type of regulation. Hey, who knew that there was a Flavor Saver tomato from 1992 on the shelf that we were eating that then they later pulled for some unknown reason? This is ridiculous. The United States is now revamping its rules for regulating GMOs. Yes, well, they passed the Monsanto Protection Act. And did you know, as part of that Monsanto Protection Act, if they ever find out that GMOs are dangerous down the line, guess what? You can never, ever sue Monsanto for damaging you or your children. So there you go, guys. Make sure you stick around. Keep your eyes on the genetically modified, non-browning apples and potatoes. All right, Mr. Kevin Blanche is live. Up next is Tuesday, Lots Live Radio. Everybody have an awesome day. I'll get to you tomorrow.